So great to be here. My name's Cal and my journey is pretty unconventional, as you've probably just heard from the title, that it started with a prank that went absolutely horribly wrong and now finding different ways to look after the ocean, wearing lots of different hats. So my journey, this is my first day of primary school, first day of high school. I'm someone who absolutely loves the ocean. That was my first day at the UN as well. And my childhood was full of doing nippers, doing surfing, just playing water polo, just getting in the ocean as much as possible. And I remember a Year 10 science lesson very vividly. We watched a documentary about climate change, which I'm sure a lot of the teachers here have seen before, called An Inconvenient Truth. And I don't know if any students have seen that. But I just remember getting home and just being so concerned about climate change and the future that we were told we were going to inherit. I thought, all right, well, what can I do? We're learning about all these big global problems. How can I change the world and do something about this? But then my mindset shifted. I thought, okay, well, no one can change the world. Not even Donald Trump can change the whole world as much as he'd like to. But what I can do is change my own world. And for me, that was my high school. So I thought, all right, well, getting solar panels is such a good idea. It will actually help to reduce our emissions. We'll have energy savings. We'll be able to reinvest it into the school. Complete no-brainer. So I wrote a letter. I was in Year 10 at the time. Is anyone here in Year 10? Yeah, a few people. So I was in Year 10 and I wrote a letter to the deputy principal and I said, here's why we should get solar panels installed. And I was like, oh, great, this will be easy, job done. And the deputy principal never got back to me. And I thought, okay, well, maybe it's because I'm young, maybe it's because I'm not in this position of power in my school. So I ran for SRC going into Year 11 and I stood up there in front of all of my year and I said, hey, I really want to get solar panels installed, you should vote for me. And the other people that ran, someone did a rap, I think someone brought their fidget spinner and just sort of showed how good they were with that. And I was like, sweet, this is going to be so easy. I'm the only one who's actually brought some good ideas to this, pitch. And I didn't get in. And I thought, all right, this is not good. So Year 12 comes around and I think, okay, well, maybe if I become school captain, I'll finally get the authority that I need to meet with the principal and the deputy principal and tell them that we should get solar panels installed at our high school. And thinking about what I should do, I thought, all right, well, maybe doing a prank. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen probably Prank Patrol on the ABC growing up. It was a show that I absolutely loved when I was growing up. And I had this idea to do a prank for my school captain speech. So I actually messaged Scott Tweedy on Instagram and randomly he got back to me. And so we spent months planning this prank out, which we did the prank for my school captain speech, which was a lot of fun. But then in the afternoon, the principal dragged me into his office and he said, look, you shouldn't have probably done that. It was pretty unfair to the other candidates that you brought a celebrity in to help with your school captain speech. So I was withdrawn from being school captain. And it's very upsetting, but it was all good, as you'll soon find out. So I had this adversity. I was like, oh man, I really want to get solar. I thought this was the pathway to do it. And so I ended up just emailing the Department of Education because I was in Year 12, it was my last opportunity to leave that legacy on the school, finally get this through. And emailed the Department of Education, said, hey, our school's sort of interested to get solar. What's the process? And at the same time, I had already met with the principal and he just said, oh, you should just tell the whole year to turn the lights off a bit more if you really want to try to reduce energy. So I really wanted to get solar, as you could tell. And anyway, so I'm emailing the Department of Education during the school summer holidays. And first day back at school, the principal drags me back into his office. And he says, hey, Cal, I know you've been emailing the Department of Education. Probably shouldn't have done that. But the cost of solar has come right down. So, green light to go and raise the money if you're that passionate about it. So I raised $50,000. The state government matched it with $50,000 and I became the first student in the country to get solar panels installed at my high school. Just finally got there. So that's a photo of me when I was pitching for the money, photo of the solar, and it got picked up by the ABC and a bunch of media that ended up helping to get 20 other schools to get solar. So that was my high school experience of trying to make change and trying to do something while in high school to try to address those concerns that I was feeling about climate change and eco-anxiety. And so with my water polo, we trained in our local bay and there was one training session that there was so much plastic in the water. So as we're swimming, as we're passing the ball, there was just rubbish and wrappers getting all over us. And so the coach said, all right, training's over, everyone go home and get out, the water's too dirty. And I just remember thinking, this is crazy. Like, this is the sport I love. This is, my hometown. And I can't do the thing I love because of plastic pollution. And yes, I couldn't probably change the whole global plastic pollution problem, but what could I do to try to look after my local bay, try to make a difference to clean plastic from there? So I started an organisation called Plastic Free Cronulla, partnered with the Cronulla Chamber of Commerce, and really built a movement to get rid of plastic in our business community. So working with the largest venue, for example, the RSL, they were using 120,000 plastic straws every single year, switch them from plastic to paper. You're probably wondering, what's the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, doing on my slides at the time? He was my local member. So I was working with federal government, working with state government, working with local council to really try to drive policy outcomes. And we ended up building this really strong community movement that saw single-use plastic cutlery, plastic straws, and a bunch of other items banned in New South Wales. So we're able to lobby the state government, and using, the journey and the stories that we had, we were able to see these items banned, which was really cool. So that journey led me to being invited to be part of the World Ocean Day Youth Advisory Council, and I was meeting young people from all across the world, hearing about all the different problems that they were facing in their own towns, but what they were doing to step up. And then I was invited to go to the United Nations and speak. So I went to COP, which, if you haven't heard of COP, it's the UN climate change conference that happens every year, which hopefully we can finally solve it and we don't have to keep going back and having this every year. So I went to COP27 and got the really cool photo in Egypt, riding a camel, which was good fun. We got to speak over there and meet so many incredible people and learn so much more about climate change. And the biggest takeaway that I learned from all of the science is that the time frame that we have to take action has to be today. And so I came back and I thought, well, how can I change the world? Because I just learned about all of these global issues that are currently happening with climate change. But again, just that mindset of what can I do to change my own world? And for me, my own world at the time, the Sutherland Shire, water polo, my friends and family, Australian youth, I was really just thinking about, well, what can I do? Because I've just felt so inspired about hearing all of these different stories of young people creating so many incredible change and solutions. And I really want to share that with as many people as possible. So I had the idea actually when I was in the negotiating room at COP, just watching the back and forth of all these countries deciding where a full stop could go. And I thought creating a documentary and a documentary series would be such a great way to try to inspire other people to take action. So very fortunate to be able to create the documentary Rising Up, got to travel to Tuvalu. Has anyone heard of Tuvalu before? Not a lot of people, a few people. So it's the least visited country in the world. It's meant to be the first country to go underwater with climate change. So got to travel all across the Pacific, Great Barrier Reef, all across Australia, and really tell some inspiring stories of hope. So that journey has led me to doing some exciting things now. I ran for local council as a way to try to look after my local community. Got elected, which was really fun. Also been giving talks all across the country and started an initiative called Blue Minds, where we go into schools and talk about eco-anxiety with a good friend of mine, Cooper Chapman, who runs the Good Human Factory and has a really strong platform about the mental health. So that's a bit about my journey. Probably the most fun talk I gave last year was a panel with Dr. Carl and Damon Gamu, which was really cool. Dr. Carl knows so much, so it was really cool to be a sponge with his knowledge. And the three things that I wish I knew when I was at high school, that I wish I knew when I was your age, the number one would be to follow your passion and values. We've learnt from so many incredible other stories of how people have turned their passion for the ocean into things that they wanted to do in the research field. For me, it was trying to find different things that I enjoyed throughout high school, going through uni, because there's so many different things that you can do for the ocean. It's just really try to find that thing that you enjoy, because with the challenges that this planet faces, we're not going to solve these problems overnight. We're going to need to be the change makers for literally, decades and decades. So finding a pathway that you enjoy is so important. Focusing on what's in your control. Again, for me, really trying to focus on changing your own world, because as young people, you probably have sport clubs you're a part of, or your school community, or different groups with your friends and family. You have so much power to influence the world around you. So really getting started and making that change. And the third is incremental progress. And the mindset that I've always had is just trying to get 1% better each day. And if you get 1% better, so for example, the Olympics last year, there's athletes that spend hundreds and hundreds of hours trying to shave 0.0001 of a second off their PB. And so if you're trying to create change, or trying to, get involved in different careers, that mindset of, chipping away at that 1%, over a year, you'll be 38 times better than you would at this time. So just thinking about where you want to be March next year, 38 times better is enormous change if you just keep chipping away each day. And then likewise, if you get 1% worse, you'll literally get to 0. So we don't want to do that. And the last thing that I want to leave everyone here with is a quote that really changed my life. And it's one that is really profound, and you might have seen it in a movie before, and it's to have no regrets. Oh, they spelt it wrong. I need to change that. But we only have one life. We only have one planet. We only have one ocean. And it's so important now to really get involved, to really take action. And as young people, we truly have the power to rewrite the future for the better with our actions every single day.
You talked there about going to the UN and the other nations bringing their climate change and their ocean issues as well to discuss. But what else did you learn from all these other nations about how to create momentum? Because that's going to look different everywhere.
Yeah, momentum is, going back to that incremental progress piece as well, I feel like, getting single-use plastic banned and helping with that was never the mindset that I wanted to try to achieve when I started Plastic Free Cronulla. It was like, how do I just chip away with every single business that I was working with? I knew that if I was switching them from plastic to paper, that was going to be less pollution going into my local bay. So to create momentum is just that mindset of not being too overwhelmed by thinking about these problems as completely out of our control or too big to solve. It's just what can we do in that every day within what's in our world, what can we control, and just chipping away. And over a long amount of time, like if you're all in high school now and you still have a little bit to go in your high school or your university experience and you keep chipping away 1%, by the time you're my age, you're going to be worlds ahead of where I was. So that's one thing. And then I think the biggest inspiring thing was meeting so many incredible young people and actually breaking down their stories because you meet them at the UN and you sort of see them on the panels and you have really great conversations, but actually unpacking where they were. And everyone's journey started where everyone here is now, your own age, and just slowly chipping away. Like everyone just started with that first step.
How did you end up raising the money for the solar panels in your school?
Yeah, so getting solar, so when I was going through high school, there was a government scheme that whatever we raised as a school, they would match it with 50% of the funds. So the principal pretty much said the maximum that we could do was $100,000, 100 kilowatts. Like if you go above that, you're technically classified as a power station. So that was the complete maximum amount. And so I went and met with the PNC, which again is just like putting yourself out there. You never know, like there's literally nothing to lose when you give things a crack. And I went to the PNC and coincidentally, they literally had $50,000 in their bank account. And it took a lot of convincing to convince them to put all of their savings that they'd accumulated over decades into solar. But the way I sort of frame that is that with solar, within 2.5 years, the school got its money back. And every single year after that, it was about $15,000 to $18,000 that the school were then able to save from energy and then reinvest into incredible education things. It's been really cool to go back to the school a few years after and see the impact that I've had there, seeing some of the cool extra library books I've been able to buy and some other cool things as well.
For students who might feel like they want to achieve something, what would you encourage them to do?
Such a great question. And just going back to that mindset that I have of like, what is that circle of influence? Like, what is your world that you can try to create change in? I feel like for me, I didn't have a lot of friends really with the solar. Like I was just sort of a one-man band chipping away. As you could see, I didn't get voted in. But I had lots of mates that didn't really see me in that way. But I think the biggest thing with the trying to create change is actually like what connections can you make? Like maybe you don't have people in your corner or support networks you can tap into straight away. But for me, for example, with Plastic Free Cronulla and wanting to really tackle plastic in the business community, I went to the Cronulla Chamber of Commerce, which is a group of businesses that all get together to represent the business needs. And I said, hey, here's a really great idea of what could help to lift the profile of all the businesses in the area because we're getting a lot of good media traction. So they were able to support and sort of help to fund the website and things like that, but also introduce me to all the businesses in the local area. So if you just put yourself out there, and I feel like also just reaching out to politicians as well, like your local council. But I feel like a lot of young people, it's very hard to reach out to people, and we feel like, oh man, this is going to be so embarrassing, like putting ourselves out there. But the mindset I hope everyone here takes away is literally, what's the worst that could happen? And if you have that mindset anytime you make a decision and you write it down, then when you look at that and it's just words, like what's the worst that could happen for me, trying to create Plastic Free Cronulla? Okay, I attend a couple of meetings and maybe it doesn't get traction, but I still learn a lot and meet different people. So when you really distill it down and you find that why, and obviously everyone's here today because they have a strong connection to the ocean, they really want to try to leave this planet better. So yeah, just really trying to, feel that why and use that to just completely negate any potential barriers that you put in your own head of why you can't do something.
Sorry, I don't know if you mentioned this already, but what was the prank you did?
Oh, so I actually did get approval for the prank, but they didn't realise, I guess, who he was at the time, because they're like, oh yeah, you can do a prank, that's all good. So yeah, I did get all the necessary approvals, but the prank was pretty much, we were pretending to be part of like a reality TV show, and not maths or anything like that, but one about year 12 life. And so I was getting up there in front of my year and just saying, hey, I'm part of this new show. I've got the filmmaker, videographer sort of guy at the back. And then he was just going to keep butting in with my speech. And so then he came up the front as this, he had his big camera, like wig and everything on. And he was like, oh, there's something we've got to tell you. I've known Cal my whole life. And because he was pretending to be this, filmmaker person. And then he ripped off his wig and was like, I'm Scotty. And everyone just went nuts. And yeah, it was really funny. So that was the prank, which did not end up in my favour.
Can you tell us a bit about the impact of Blue Minds?
Yeah, so there was a study that came out, which is my job now, that said that 2 in 3 of us young Australians have eco-anxiety. And I'm someone who's gone through it a lot through high school, and sort of when you travel to all these frontline nations and experience, the UN, and you learn about that, eco-anxiety impacts most of us here. So firstly, don't feel alone with how you feel. Like, it's completely normal to feel this way. So make sure to have these conversations with your friends. But Blue Minds is pretty much combining my friend Cooper, who I mentioned before, his experience in the mental health space. He's spoken to 50,000 students all about gratitude, mindfulness, all these practical things that you can do to help with your mental health. And my journey about taking action for the ocean and taking action, which actually helps to reduce that eco-anxiety as well. Because I've always had the mindset and mantra that hope lies in action. So the more concern that we feel, as long as we're doing something about it, we're focusing on what's in our control, then we're doing the best and we help to reduce that. So it's a free program that we run in high schools, universities as well. We've done quite a number, and run through a workshop to sort of go from that, I guess, anxiety to action. And then, yeah, it's been really cool. We've already done 5,000 students across the country so far since starting maybe 5 months ago. So, yeah, it's been a really great story and journey so far.